What's up, everybody? Welcome to Cranked and Ranked 9 Inch Nails Part 2. I like that. The people in the podcast world can't see the hand gestures. I won't even tell you what they were, but they were rude.
I started with 4. I really screwed up there. That was me just saving face.
Welcome to Cranked and Ranked. As usual, old head, your host. With me as always, Mr. Eddie Sparxx.
With you as always is Garth.
No, Eddie Garths. Not Eddie Munson, ladies and gentlemen. This is the original Eddie Sparxx.
Not.
This is going to be 9 Inch Nails Part 2. For those of you who listened to Part 1, welcome back. If you're just here to hear the top albums, welcome. We're going to be doing the top 7 9 Inch Nails releases. As I explained on the last episode, we basically just took all the original material. So all of the full-length albums that are original material, and then the couple of EPs that are original material. So we left off all the remixes and singles and all these other things. I'm sure somebody out there, I'm sure there's probably some diehard 9 Inch Nails fans that have done it in an entire ranking, or at least something about the entire discography, because it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds?
Well,
is it hundreds?
Well, here's the thing. Trent Reznor had the foresight to turn his fans into crazy collectors by giving most releases what's called a halo number.
Yeah.
And I think we're up to like the mid 30s now in terms.
Oh, it's only 30? All
right. It's officially, yeah. But there's also he did a separate thing called seed numbers, and it's like, dude, come on, man, you can't keep doing this to me. I've got most of the fun story. I don't know if I told this last time, but I literally walked in to my friend's record shop, and clearly they had just had like an ex diehard 9 Inch Nails fan who'd followed them right from Down In It all the way up until about
I like how you said Down In It.
Yeah. It's I have most of the CD singles
Nice.
because I happened to walk into my friend's record shop and they were just there on the floor, and I thought to myself, Jesus fucking Christ, I love 9 Inch Nails right now. And this was like directly when I had just gotten into them. I thought, I've got a little bit of money and none of these are very expensive. I think I kind of wandered in on a situation where a guy didn't know what he had.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, I walked in and I just walked up to the counter like this. All these, please. Because I was a friend of his son's. He was like, tell you what, I'll give you some money off too. So I walked out of there with at least half of the Halo numbers, singles and EPs and stuff for like 30 quid, which
Nice.
that's not bad. That's not bad for all that stuff.
That's a deal.
That is a deal.
And behind me, if you're watching the video, this is the only 9 Inch Nails that I own. I owned CDs and cassettes when I was younger, but I sold all of that shit, and I haven't gone back to recollect 9 Inch Nails, except for my wife got me this, which is the reissue of Broken on vinyl, and this is the little 7-inch that comes with it. Because it's like the EP proper is on this, and then the two quote unquote cover songs are on the little 7-inch.
Which makes this one of the rare times where I actually have more vinyl of a band than you do.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm cool with that. I'll get there eventually, but it'll be, I think everyone, no, barring the first couple I'm going to talk about, I think my top 5 are all ones that I would like to have on vinyl.
For sure.
And, but we're doing the top 7. So, yeah. And we're not going to be talking about anything that starts with the word ghosts this time because we did all of them last time.
Yeah, pretty
I
early
think
in that one.
I feel like even really diehard Nine Inch Nails fans, I think the Ghost things still fall low on the list because when you become a Nine Inch Nails fan, that's not why you become a fan. Like you, most hardcore fans, especially old school hardcore fans, they got in on Head Like a Hole or Wish or March of the Pigs or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll be talking about all of those releases that I just talked about on this episode because we didn't include any of those things. I don't think we included any 90s material in the last episode.
No.
So or 80s, I guess Pretty Hate Machine was 89. So
True.
so yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I'm sure there'll be some tangents in this episode. You know, we'll do our best to derail things because some of you really enjoy that.
Yeah.
But let's just get started. And as usual, throwing it over to Eddie Sparxx with his number 7 Nine Inch Nails release.
Cool. So my number 7 Nine Inch Nails release is The Slip from 2008.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a fun album. And it was given away for free a few months after Ghosts, I believe
Yeah.
it. I believe it was after Ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, it doesn't really come off so much as Damage Control for, the Ghost thing so much as it does to me for, hey, that was an experiment. Here's some more Nine Inch Nails-y Nine Inch Nails. So starting off with 999,999, which is an ambient intro track, and then you get a million, 1 million,
written
which
out in ones and
yeah,
zeros, and zeros.
and commas.
Those two. Yeah.
Yeah, you need it, otherwise it's hard to tell. Yeah, it's this kind of pounding, fun, groovy, riffy one. There's a lot of that here. There's a lot of kind of garage rock sort of vibes on this one, where it's like it's rocky, but it's not heavy rock. It's just kind of like riffy rock.
Yeah.
Letting You is a wild song. Rhythmically, it feels like it's about to go off the rails at any moment, just like this podcast. Discipline.
We don't even have any rails.
We don't have rails. We just hurtle down.
We
country
might
lanes
do
on
rails
goals.
every once in a while, but you know.
Woo! Yeah!
Party time.
You still got that bag I gave you, Steven? It's gonna be a while. So yeah, Discipline is a catchy alt rocker. Echoplex is this kind of introverted kind of alt rocker. Head Down, it's this dancey rocking beat with like bendy, low-tuned guitars. Lights in the Sky is this piano ballad but it has that distinct Trent Reznor Nine Inch Nails flavor.
Yeah.
And then this is the part where all of a sudden, like, I can't help but feel as though these two next tracks are ghosts in disguise.
Yeah.
It's Corona Radiata. Like I say, it's got a bit of that Ghosts soundtrack vibe seeping into it. Can't help but feel as though they ran out of space in Ghosts. So they were like, well, fuck making a whole other disc for 2 more Ghosts. Let's just tack these onto the Slip. You also get The Four of Us Are Dying, which is another ghosty thing. And that's about 10 minutes of a 40-minute album. So really there's about 30 minutes of Nine Inch Nails on here. And then finally you get Demon Seed. Yeah, it's this funky, rhythmic, dark, dystopian rock closer. It has some similarities stylistically to Year Zero, barring Year Zero being a concept album and this one being a bit more of just a strip back, each song as it comes kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's enjoyable, but it's not one I would reach for unless I was really doing Nine Inch Nails deep dive. So that's where it's at for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was in the last episode for me. It's not one of the better ones to me, but has its moments. Um, so my number seven. This is one that I think a lot of people really like, and when it came out, I just remember being kind of like, all right, and that feeling hasn't really changed, even though overall I can see its qualities. My number seven is With Teeth from 2005, which is the fourth, full length, like proper full length Nine Inch Nails album.
Yeah.
Following this was following the Fragile, right? This was the first thing that he did after the Fragile.
Full 6 years later, yeah.
Yeah. And some of it's got Dave Grohl on drums, which is cool. Like if you're going to tap a drummer, why not tap one of the best and hardest hitting drummers? And that brings a good energy to the album. Now, my problem with this album is that overall, like there's cool elements there and there's cool songs on this album, but it almost feels to me like diet Nine Inch Nails. Like same great taste, but fewer calories. It's just like and some of it is like real rehash seeming. And lyrically speaking, some of it I go, old Trent would probably laugh at some of these lyrics because some of them are not very good, but I mean, it is what it is. I just think that something about this album just doesn't feel as dangerous or interesting or even forward thinking. This one feels very stuck, almost like it's 2005, but it's still in the 90s for him. And he's like, well, I don't know how to get out of there. So I'm going to do With Teeth. It may come across totally different to other people, of course, but I just think, the songs that ended up being the singles are like some of the most phoned in Nine Inch Nails songs I've ever heard. Hand That Feeds and with Only. Those are both songs that I just go, these are fine if somebody was given a homework assignment to make Nine Inch Nails kind of sounding songs, but it wasn't Trent Reznor. This is what they would sound like. And so they're fine, but I just expect a lot more. And especially because once we get to talking about the Fragile, my hopes were very high. I was like, what the fuck is he going to do this time? And it was kind of just, oh, here's an album with some songs on it. But overall it just feels a bit empty. And I just feel like everything he had done since then, I feel like each album in some way is pushing things a little bit forward. And this is the first one where I feel like he kind of just sort of was complacent and didn't really try to do anything. What I'm trying to say is, there's always those sounds or those songs when you first hear the album that you go, oh, I don't even know what to make of this, or this is a different thing. Whereas this one, there's none of that. It's all things that you already know that he could do, and he just did it again. But it's done very well. Like, that's the thing. It's a very well produced album. Sounds really good. Great performances on it. It just maybe a little bit too samey, and for what it offers, it's too long. But it does have its highlights. I mean, the song "Getting Smaller" is fucking killer. I almost feel like we were talking on the last episode about how we wish that every once in a while he would have a vibe and stick to it. So I almost feel like if he had taken out all of the ones that, because like the ones where it has a real live band energy are really cool. If he had just taken all the other ones out and made this is going to be a raw, almost like Nine Inch Nails is a rock band album, then I think it would have been a way, to me anyway. I mean, it did very well for him and people really like it. But for me, it would have been probably much higher on the list because those are the aspects of the album that I really like. But it's got a lot of great shit, enough to put it in this half of the ranking for me. But I just feel like it's the first one where I feel like maybe he couldn't quite figure out what he wanted the album to be. And it kind of, but I mean, for like, if you're wanting Nine Inch Nails, it's not a bad album to go to. It's just nowhere near the first one that I would go to. So that's why it's rounding out the bottom half or the rounding out the bottom of the top. Whatever. Number 7. Moving on to your number 6, unless you have any thoughts on all the things I just said.
I like that one a little bit more than you, but I do agree that compared to their trajectory from 89 to 99, there is a distinct. I think you nailed it with the Diet 9 Inch Nails,
Yeah.
where it's like it's a little bit like sonically it has its own vibe, but
Yeah.
feels like it's playing it a little bit safe. Like it's
Yeah.
an across the board sort of
Like if they
please
did,
everyone sort of thing.
like if up to
Yeah.
that point he had only been making R-rated movies and now he made a PG-13 movie. It's like it's like there's a little bit of an edge
Yeah.
there, but not too much for so younger people can get into it, I guess.
But
I don't know if that was I'm sure that was not his intention. But yeah.
well, there's a thing as well. You know, if that 6 year gap between the Fragile and with Teeth, he kind of metamorphosized from skinny heroin addict to jacked fucking the dude looks great.
He for a dude who already looked great.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
he's already an insanely good looking dude, and then he gets really in shape. It's like, fuck you.
yeah. These fucking people and their decent metabolisms. Like I have to I have to count my fucking calories because all it takes is me to fall slightly off the wagon and a stone is back on.
Oh.
Whereas you got these motherfuckers. Now, granted, there is an expiry date with some of these people where they eat like shit and they don't gain any weight, and then one day, boom, out of nowhere, they're in horrendous shape in their like mid 40s after being skinny the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So, for me, I've always kind of like, for those who want a little peer into, an insecurity of mine, I've always struggled with my weight a little bit, going up and down. I've been particularly good this past year or so, though. Like back when we started this podcast, I was 3 stone heavier than I am now,
Oh.
and yeah,
I'm pretty sure I've been worse than I've been in years, and I don't even want to weigh myself at this point. But I mean, I'm the same thing. I've been a chubby dude since, I was probably, a preteen. Yeah, I think that's probably when I first started to realize, oh, like my other friends don't have guts, and I do.
Yeah, it's like when I see now, I know this is because they have no body fat percentage, but you look around at skinny dudes and they look ripped with zero effort, and it's like, yeah, they're skinny, but like you stick a leather jacket on that motherfucker, he's gonna get chicks, god damn it, and it's annoying.
I think a thing that's helped me a little bit over the years, though, I have my own issues with myself, and I hate it, and I wish I could be more in shape, but at the same time, I have to always remind myself that I'm into the bigger ladies. So it's like I'm not out there being like I want the girl who's like super fit with like rock hard abs. I'm like, no, that's not you can have them, but it's so I have to remind myself like, well, quit being so hard on yourself, because there's plenty of women out there that I go, man, she's pretty attractive. If she put on about 20 pounds, she'd be really hot.
Yeah, I'm a curvy woman man myself.
So
yeah. It's like when it comes to my own self-image, it's not that I want to bang the head cheerleader. I just like to think that I could. It's that self-confidence thing.
I think for me, now that I'm 44, into my 40s now, it's more just like not dying is the thing that bothers me. It's like, because I just that's the point for me. I'm like, somebody just calling me fat, I'm like, whatever. It's it's hurtful for a minute and then I move on. But I'm all like, I'd kind of like to be around for a while. So that's why like I'm usually trying to watch, at least keep myself in some sort of range where it's not scary. So
yeah, I one last thing I tend to think about, and this comes back to all it ever takes is like one person to turn around and say, hey, you're kind of the fat friend, and then immediately you're self-conscious for the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
like no matter how much you lose, there is always that thing of I could lose more. But yeah, I've fluctuated a little bit. I kind of fell off a little, but I'm back on it. I'm watching as many 80s action movies with ridiculously unrealistic bodies in it, just to give myself a little push.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you had 10 hours a day where you could just pump roids and shrink your junk, you could have biceps like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that,
That is a
I'm
weird.
gonna.
That. Who'd have thought the Nine Inch Nails episodes are the ones where we'd finally get onto our body issues? It's fucking Trent
Yeah.
Reznor's fault.
Yeah, fuck you, Trent, looking good in both body types, you dick.
Yep.
Nah, all power to him. He looks great. But yeah, my number six. Let's hop onto it.
Yeah.
My number six is Year Zero.
Nice.
Now, the very first thing I want to put out there with this album is that it's an apocalyptic concept album from 2007, set in the year 2020 fucking 2.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, he's not far off. Like, some of this shit, like, I think to myself, Jesus Christ, like, this could happen tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
we just got to get to 2023, and it's another one of those dated references, but we've still got 6 whole months to get through before then.
Yeah, I love how with a lot of sci-fi movies they've gotten smart now. They're like, this takes place in the future at 4000 whatever. It's like 4022. I'm like, yeah, that's good. Give it a couple hundred years or a couple thousand years. Just give yourself some space, because you don't want to be those people that made that movie and everyone's all like, where are the hoverboards? So.
Well, wasn't Judgment Day supposed to take place in 1997, like in the Terminator universe?
Oh yeah, that's kind of different though, because when you're dealing with like a completely different timeline where it's like these things happen because of an event in the movie, it's a little bit easier to swallow, because I'm like, well, I mean, if that sort of shit actually did happen, then it could be a reality.
Yeah.
And so, but where it's different, where it's just like, a lighthearted movie where they go to the future and everyone's got flying cars, and I'm like, well, we're just now getting a grasp on the electric car thing. So let's wait a little while for the flying cars.
Dude, as much as I'm like, all for progress and stuff, the amount of times I've nearly been taken out on like zebra crossings by a fucking electric car because I just didn't hear it,
Oh.
Like there is that like one thing of, don't certain like manufacturers actually artificially introduce a noise to the car so that
I've heard that, yeah.
It,
yeah. Which I guess that makes sense, but I don't know. When I drive, I play music really loud, so it doesn't matter anyway. Like, it's like, I'm not listening for car sounds most of the time.
I'm more talking about, crossing the street, the stop, look, and listen stuff.
Oh, just look both ways for across the street.
Yeah, but there was this big like when I was a kid, I don't know if you guys had it, but there was this like road safety thing for kids, and the mascot was a little hedgehog. And
Nope.
Yeah, he was like, we would get stickers of him like every year for like road safety. They were like reflective stickers that you put on your bike and shit, or your helmet and stuff. But I remember always the slogan was stop, look, and listen. And now it's like stop, look, and pray you don't have a very fast car coming at you that you can't hear.
Yeah.
But times change. And with that, I'm gonna talk about an album that hopefully doesn't come true, but I can see it happening.
I almost feel like if he did a concept album about what 2022 is really like, it's actually more depressing than Year Zero.
Yeah. Yeah. This decade's been kind of strange so far. That's
a good way to put it.
Understatement of the fucking century.
Yeah.
So yeah, hyperpower. Hang on, wait, no, I flubbed that. Hyperpower, because it's all in caps.
And that's when the fucking Rangers morph into the giant robot, and they battle whoever,
That's
whatever.
what dreams are made of.
That's at the end of that first Power Rangers movie. I know that.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie. My favorite thing about that Power Rangers movie is that they actually thought that there would be a reality where somebody comes to a bunch of kids and says, your parents are all about to kill themselves. And then they all go, we have to stop it. Where in real life, they'd be like, great, we wanted to party. Have them all jump off a cliff. Who the fuck cares? That would have been a way different movie. But like in that world, the kids are like, oh my goodness, we've got to save our parents. All right, Power Rangers.
Just this like alternate reality where like everyone's just an like belligerent dick, you know.
Well, that's what kids are.
That's a good band name, dude. Belligerent Dick.
Belligerent Dick. Oh, I actually really do like that.
Yeah,
you
cool.
got to change your band name now.
Yeah, we're Belligerent Dick.
I really do like that, Belligerent Dick. It feels good coming out of the mouth.
Yeah.
That's what she said. But you know what I'm saying? Or going into the mouth would be that she said. Whatever, it doesn't matter. At this point, I'm just looking for a cheap laugh.
If she doesn't swallow, it comes out.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
This is dirty.
Why would you want to be with anybody like that?
Yeah. Pussy. Chug.
Belligerent Dick.
Belligerent Dick.
That really does have a nice ring to it.
That's it. That's our band.
Belligerent Dick.
Belligerent Dick. It's like Citizen Dick, but way more belligerent.
Citizen Dick.
So yeah. Where am I?
Number 2, I think.
The beginning of the end is as hokey as it is foreboding. Survivalism is the big song from this album.
Cool.
Love
song.
Love this tune. This is the song I always think of when I think of this album.
Yeah.
The Good Soldier and the bass goes boom. I always like that bit.
Yeah.
Vessel is this groovy, creeping electro vibe sort of thing. Me, I'm Not, is this industrial grinding groove. Capital G is a cool song with this fun swagger and like kind of sarcastic lyrics. Literally like from the perspective of a belligerent dick, you know. My Violent Heart is this explosive kind of track. It's very dynamic. The Warning. There's parts of this album where like just a really cool riffy guitar shows up and I'm living for it.
Yeah.
God Given sounds like shaking your ass while the world crumbles to dust. You know, I get that vibe from a lot of Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah, thematically, I shouldn't want to like vibe to this, but you know, kind of kicks ass.
Yeah.
Meet Your Master, like hooky chorus, cool. The Greater Good, cool stuff here. It's got this menacing, sinister feel. The Great Destroyer, shit gets real around the 2-minute mark in that song. Another Version of the Truth has some spooky piano to it. In This Twilight, now those female scream samples are really unsettling. Like, I was hearing that and I was like, I actually feel uncomfortable in a good way. You know, it elicit like that thing out of you where you're like, oh, something bad's happening here in the story. And Zero Sum, you know, kind of, you know, brings things full circle on a somber note.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really cool out there album, and you know, I think I do need to spend a little bit more time with it. I think it perhaps maybe could move up a space with time, but it's a victim of circumstance. When I would say I love my top 4 albums almost equally, there are just certain little things, and it can change any day of the week, but like my top 4 are the 4 I'm gonna reach for, you know, unless I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to this one in a while. That being said, with that, Year Zero is my number 6 of Nine Inch Nails. There's a lot of numbers.
It's also my number 6, Year Zero. I agree with everything you said there. It's a really cool album, especially for me following with Teeth. This one is like much more focused, much more interesting. And to me, it almost feels like the first real Nine Inch Nails of the millennium, where it doesn't feel stuck in the past. It feels like he's starting to think about, all right, where am I going from here?
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that. And it's got like tons of cool ideas and a really enjoyable vibe throughout. Like it feels very cohesive as an album. I could give two fucks about a concept. I don't care. But the actual meat of it, what's happening in this album, it's really enjoyable. It's not 100% killer, and it's too long for my taste. But it's one of those albums that has the potential to be 100% killer if he would just cut a few things out. But you could say that about, like, I mean, we say it all the time. Any album made, I don't know, post maybe 95 or something like that, all of a sudden, most albums could do with a little bit of trimming. And we'll get to that in a minute with a thing that I have to say about another album, about how our perception of the length of albums and what that means has changed so much that, because I'm still stuck with, like, a great album is normally going to be no longer than 40 minutes long. 45 is pushing it, but there are some great albums that are 45 minutes. But even the best albums with, from some of my favorite bands that have has amazing shit on it, once they get towards an hour or even more, that's when I'm like, I mean, yeah, but come on,
it becomes more of a commitment to your time. That's the thing. It can be quite intimidating. That's like me with I mean, I've probably said this 1,000 times, but like, it's like me with Load and Reload. I'm very much like, this has a lot of really cool stuff on it, and even the deeper stuff, I find new things I haven't heard before. Also, sonically, Load and Reload are really well recorded albums and really well produced. They sound great, but it's just the length. I think the length of those albums let them down in a way, just because there's just simply so much to digest that it's like, you could have spread this across 3 records, let alone 2. And
if anyone's interested, we did a grooved it. No, what was it? Slashed and mashed of Load and Reload. If you didn't watch it,
that was
go check
fun.
it out. It was fun.
I am smashed in that video. I don't know how convincing I was, but earlier in the day, I forgot that we were recording the podcast, and I got off my tits drunk.
You held it together pretty well.
I did. And, I will say, to those who didn't know, I can't remember if I mentioned it in the podcast, but to those who didn't know, the only telltale sign that I'm drunk is, like, every now and again my face will do something like this. This is exclusively for the video watchers. I'll be there like, okay, yeah. I'll be like, well, yep, I'm here. But aside from that, it's a good episode.
Now I gotta go back and watch that episode and see how many times you do that.
Yeah, once you hone in on it, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah.
I went back and watched it, and I was like, oh man.
I hate it when people point out mannerisms of people like that, because then I can't not see it. Yeah. It's like the kid in Dazed and Confused who's constantly, like, touching his nose, like, all the time. And now I can't not see it. The entire movie is like, oh man. Oh, and he just does it over and over again. I'm like, now I can't not see that every single time.
You gotta, like, make a drinking game out of it, where, like, you do a shot every time he does that shit. And you gotta do, like, a clown honk noise every time he does it. Shot. Yeah. So yeah,
you could do that with me. I'm sure there's plenty of things that I do. I'll, like, take a shot every time he messes with his hair or his beard. You're gonna be drunk in no time.
Yeah.
There you go. Take a shot. They're in the middle of a drinking game they didn't even know they were playing. That looks like it's probably water. So
actually, it's just fucking straight vodka. I have a problem. It is some still water. It's not from a bottle, but little bottle of water.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't need teas.
We don't need teas. Don't exist in Britain. Fuck tea. pussy fucking.
Well, except for a good Earl Grey or
oh yeah,
chamomile.
Yeah. Forget I said anything. That is funny.
Number five. Number five. Oh, go ahead. What's funny?
That is funny. For a country that loves tea, we shouldn't like saying the letter. It's fucking weird. That's funny.
It's a thing that sometimes I don't even notice it just because I grew up watching so much British television that I'm just kind of used to it. But to be fair, there are British people who really pronounce their T's as well. So, but it's cooler to leave them out. I don't know if it just feels cooler from an American perspective. I hear that and I go, man, that sounds cool. We sound really stupid the way we talk.
Nah, you sound kick ass, dude.
And that our accents are so easy to do because nowadays, like every single TV show I watch, I'm all like, oh, that's a British actor doing an American. Whereas when it's the other way around, the British accents are always so awful when Americans do them. It's like Bridget Jones or whatever, where I'm just like, come on, man.
I will say as well, like, I know, this is a tangent city, but like the amount of accents in Britain for the size of it is fucking insane. Like, it's almost like if I drove for an hour, it would be a completely different dialect. Like, yeah, it's like, because I'm in the Southwest where a lot of people talk like this. I went down Rose and got a pasty. I did, right on. Whereas like you got where my girlfriend's from, and everybody talks like they're in Black Sabbath, and it's
is that Liverpool?
nah, that's
Birmingham.
Little bit of Birmingham.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Now Liverpool's at the Beatles.
Oh yes. Hey Paul, let's get rid of Clarence and steal all his good ideas. I guess that kind of happens here too, because if I actually went and recorded people that live in different parts of Texas, you wouldn't. Well, I mean, a lot of people sound different than me because I purposely have tried to not have an accent because I think it sounds obnoxious. And so, but if you go, like I'm in Houston, but if you go to some of the smaller towns, even 100 miles from me or whatever, you'll hear like different, like Matthew McConaughey. He's from a small town in Texas, and I don't know. I think it's West Texas where he's from, maybe. But they have that kind of drawl, like how he talks. Yeah. But then you have other people that sound like fucking John Wayne or some shit, But
is that you, John Wayne? Is this me? Who said that?
But yeah, so I guess it's like that here too. But I just think that it's weird that the differences are a lot more subtle. I feel like over in England, you sound like you're from a different country sometimes.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, sometimes I'll forget about an accent and then I'll hear it and I'm like, oh yeah, where the fuck is that? Yeah, I'm not good at all of them, but I have a lot of practice with the Birmingham one because I like winding up my girlfriend. It was so funny. One time we were at a train station up, in Birmingham. It was the Birmingham New Street. It's a really big one. It's got like 12 fucking platforms. It's massive. But I remember, walking with her, and my kind of Cornish accent came in a little bit, right? And she was like, you say your R's funny. You say your R's really hard. And then I just went, chips and gravy. Can I have some chips and gravy, please? Right? And she said, shut the fuck up. We don't talk like that. Immediately over the intercom goes, bing, bong. The next train to Birmingham New Street. And it was like, I just did this like side-eye turn, like, yeah, you do. Yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun being a Brit sometimes.
Language, am I right?
Yeah. So yeah, with that, where are we at?
Oh,
my number 5.
Remember.
Okay, we're in the.
What are we? Yeah, number 5. Woo! Sorry, that was a tangent that took me. I had to do one of your things when you're drunk. I was like, where am I?
Whose house is this? Yeah. So my number 5 is With the Teeth.
Oh, that was thanks, James.
Yeah, well, I've got a little thing about that later on in the album as I'll get to it.
All right.
So yeah, starts off very understated with All the Love in the World. It's a very
Yeah.
vibey kind of opener.
Mhm.
It's quite a stark contrast to what they've done with all the other albums leading up to it. Because Head Like a Hole comes in hard. It's a banger. It's a hard driving. Broken just goes completely, starts off right from the get go with like that.
Oh yeah, we'll get to
Yeah.
that one.
And then you get probably the most brutal of the openers is Mr. Self Destruct from
Yeah.
because that thing is so dissonant and gnarly and distorted, but it's really cool song.
Well, doesn't the Fragile
yeah.
start off with something a little bit more understated, if I remember right? Yeah,
Well,
the day the whole world went away. Isn't that the first one on the Fragile?
Now the first one on the Fragile is Somewhat Damaged. That's the one that goes
Oh, the two fucked up to carry anymore. Yeah, so you're right. You're right. No, you're not. You're right. You're right. I got the track order of that thing all fucked up, but yeah,
It's cool. It's cool. It's a big album. There's a lot of tracks.
that is true. That is true.
But yeah, like I said, this is the first time that they open softly, and then immediately juxtapose that with the "You Know What You Are." And sorry, "You Know What You Are," which is this it's this double kicky wild track that totally juxtaposes the opener. Really fun, really hard rocking song. But like, I agree that there's just some moments on this album where I'm like, I don't really have a lot to say beyond the fact that, it's Nine Inch Nails doing Nine Inch Nails. I've got Collector, which is a cool song. Hand That Feeds is this great alt rock type track. It's really catchy, and it's no secret as to why it was a single.
I feel like because it's what we talked about in the last episode where Trent has set the bar so high. So I think if somebody else had done that song, I'd be like, that's a pretty cool song. But for Nine Inch Nails, I go, you can do a little better than that, Trent. Come on.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of like left turns with it. It's just a good, catchy song. Love Is Not Enough, cool, drony rock. Now, I will say, a song that hit me at the right time was Every Day Is Exactly the Same. I found myself really identifying with this during the height of the pandemic in 2020. There was just something about the mood of it and the subject matter, and it was like I was living that song that I'd heard a long time before, but it's cool that I don't want to say the pandemic was worth me liking this song more, but it's one of those times where you liked a song before and then you found meaning in it again, and it gave it a bit of a second wind. And that was Every Day Is Exactly the Same perfectly sums up the pandemic for me, because it was just like wake up, stack shelves,
and that right there is the very, very reason why, like, the people that make like pointed or they take their opinions of music and present them as facts. That's why it always bums me out, because I'm just like, at the end of the day, it's quote unquote art. And that very thing of like a song that you heard and probably went, this song is cool. And then something happens and the song has way more meaning and probably becomes a way more important song to you. And so it's like everyone's opinion on things. It's like, I think the world would be a better place if people realize that what they feel about an album is not set in stone or the truth.
Yeah.
It's just how you feel about it at that particular time. And so that's what, that's the, and that's, I feel like we do that with this show. I think we present these as, I think for both of us, our music journey and our music taste, we're fluid. We're very fluid.
Yeah.
We're not, if there's a spectrum, we're kind of all over the place. When it comes to how we feel about things, because I think because it's you got to be open to that kind of thing. That's the only way you're really gonna enjoy music, is being open to the fact that something you didn't like might become something you love, and something you love 10 years later might be something you go, that didn't age very well. So
it's kind of like, the business, if you're talking fact, if you want to apply any factual thing to music, it would be the business side of things.
Sure.
This made X amount of money because X, Y, and Z songs sold, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, on the flip side, that song that I'd heard a solid 6 years before 2020 suddenly hit me in 2020, and now it's like my favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
That is totally personal to me, though I think it would be naive for me to assume that I am the only person that song affected in 2020, because it affected everyone in 2020. But
there's actually one that's similarly I had that with, which that's a King's X song. I think it's on, I can't remember which album it's on, but it's called A Box. And the whole chorus of the song, there is no room inside a box. And the song is essentially about the bass player, having to be closeted with his sexuality, but it becomes a different thing just when you feel kind of closed in by whatever it is. And I heard that song, I don't know, it might have been like a year ago, where like something really clicked with me with that song, and now it's like one of my favorite King's X songs. And it's one before that I just heard and went, this is good, but now it's like it's in my top 10 of their songs. That's just that's how it works. It's something happens in our brains and maybe our hearts. I don't know how it works, with all that science, but I like the fact that it's hard to explain. I love that it's hard to explain.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, I can't describe why, I like the sound of like a big ass 80s snare drum. My ears just respond to that well. Yeah. A lot of people don't like the 80s gated reverb snare drum and prefer a much drier snare sound.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there is room for all snares.
Yep.
I am not a snare fascist, but
speaking of snares, there's a lot of snare on With Teeth, because you got good old Dave Grohl pounding away at the skins there.
Yeah. Good way to get this train back on the rails. Because I got kind of I had an Eddie's drunk moment again.
That's all right. I mean, we have to lean in. You said it earlier before the episode that some podcasts you get to know the people so well that you would rather hear them talk about whatever than actually stick to the subject. And I feel like we have a few of those out there, at least a handful of those. And so, let's lean into the conversation.
Thank you for helping me land that plane. That was very helpful. So we got With Teeth, the title track, with the teeth. Like it definitely sounds like Trent doing a Hetfield impression.
Yeah.
That James Hetfield owns on everything. Yeah. I'm gonna wake up in the morning and pour some cereal into a bowl.
It feels good though.
It does, but like Hetfield is undeniably the guy you think of when you do that. Yeah,
that's true. Or like I don't know if you noticed this, but little kids do that when they get whiny. They go, Noah.
Yeah.
So it's like the grown man version, the grown ass man version of that is like, your luck runs out.
Oh man, I remember like just cycling back to the accent thing a little bit. I remember one time there was this girl from like a more northern area of England. And it was so funny. Whenever like she would disagree with someone, she had this like amazing way of saying no, which is no. And I was just like, that's fantastic, dude. No, don't put it there.
There are some British accents And I think one of them that recently that you know, from a recent show was one of the ladies in Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
She pronounces O's really weird, and I kind of like it, but it's like a no, like she does like sort of something like that. But it's obviously I don't know the dialects. I don't know where it's from, but there's that certain way that I'm like, that's really interesting that they elongate vowels when they don't need to be elongated at all. But
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what the Welsh accent is, and I know I'm going to embarrass myself because I can't remember it. But you ever seen Gavin and Stacey?
no.
It's a funny show. It's got James Corden before he became a pariah.
Oh, I know basically nothing about that guy except for he's the guy that sings in Cars.
Yeah, he's good in yeah. he's funny in that.
Okay,
I think Gavin and Stacey is funny.
I've heard of it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was an American show. So
Yeah, no, it kind of plays off the England versus Wales stereotype sort of thing.
All right.
But it's a fun show. So yeah, Only is a funky ass song. Always thought the video for it was really cool. Like where he's like coming through one of those things where it's got a bunch of those little metal pins, and you would like push your hand into it, and it would have like a perfect imprint in your hand. Yeah, cool. Where are we at? Getting Smaller. It's kind of punky one.
Great song.
Sunspots is this slow grooving rocker. The line begins to blur. A vibey one. Beside You in Time. Dreamy vibey one. And then Right Where It Belongs, I will say, is a surprisingly nice sounding song melodically. You know, obviously with Nine Inch Nails patented distorted stuff in there somewhere, but melodically it's a very nice sounding song.
Yeah.
But I'd say this is the last album where I've got anything very critical to say, because 4 onward, we've narrowed it down. It's the first 4 original material releases, from 89 to 99. But the order of that is a mystery until I get to it. But over to you for your number 5.
All right, yeah, my number 5 is the 1999 album The Fragile, or The Fragile, depending on where you're from. A double album, but this is what I was going to talk about. Like if you say double album and then you go back and you're like, oh, the I don't know, the Wall is a double album, but it's still like only a third as long as The Fragile or something. So this is more of like a triple album, really, because like just with CD, I don't know, with long ass CDs, this is like, that's the thing that like people are even today like, oh, it's a double album. I'm like, this is 2 hours long. That's not a double album. That's like a quadruple album. But that being said, when this album came out, for me, it was in heavy rotation. It was perfect because, I used to say this all the time, Nine Inch Nails up to a certain point. I wouldn't say they make that kind of music anymore, but in 1999, they were still making music that I would refer to as sad dude music. Because if you are a sad dude, there's so much to latch onto in early Nine Inch Nails. And I was going through like a sad dude period. I was going through like one of the most difficult relationships and like a slow ending one where, I was one of those dudes getting treated like shit and just like holding on, the inevitable was happening, but I was still the guy that was like, I'm just going to put up with this because maybe we'll come out the other end. And I don't know. But it didn't. And sometime in 1999, it ended up all kind of falling apart and I got dumped. And so The Fragile was an album that I just kind of felt it when it came out. I was like, oh, I kind of get the vibe of a lot of these songs. But the overall, this is an amazingly well-produced album, has a lot of really good songwriting on it. The only thing I can say now, what is it, 21 years later or 23 years later? I don't whatever the math would be.
23. Yeah.
Some of it now to me hasn't aged well in the fact that an album that I thought was pretty solid all the way through. Now I'm like, oh, it does have some weaker moments here that weren't really apparent at the time. But now I'm like, yeah, this is definitely we could definitely do a slashed and mashed on this album and make it a fucking phenomenal album. But overall, it's still a very, very strong album. Especially because this is one of the few albums I could think of where I could, if I listed probably my top 10 songs from this album, some of them would be instrumentals. And it's like, what other albums can I think of? Maybe Metallica would have, songs that I think instrumentals are strong, but there are just interludes or extended interludes or whatever that I hear today and I go, that's so good. Which kind of, it tells you like my thoughts on like the Ghost stuff. I'm fine with things being instrumental, but there has to be some sort of meat to it where it feels like it needed to be instrumental. And the way that this album is mapped out and the way that these songs play, it's really great. It doesn't have any bad songs, but like I said, it could be condensed into an unfuckwithable album, but there's just so much good shit in here. And it's got, to me, it kind of expands a little bit on what he was doing with the Downward Spiral. This one to me, when I get to talking about Downward Spiral, my praise of that will be miles above the Fragile. But I just like the fact that he set forth with all of this material and compiled this long ass album that I would say, for the most part, there aren't any like definite throwaway tracks. There are just tracks where I go, this one I could leave behind if we could skip to this next one. And that's something to be said, especially, in 1999, like the music that was happening in 1999 was, nu metal, and Eminem was real popular and things like that. It wasn't this kind of music was not popular at the time.
No.
I guess it was a little bit because it's a little bit, you can latch on to the nu metal and, alt metal kind of thing, I guess.
There's some like, it's funny because, Nine Inch Nails, by the way, the Fragile is my number 4, so we can just camp out.
Oh, sweet. Let's just move it on over.
But it's like I was saying, there's so many qualities about Nine Inch Nails that you can find in a bunch of nu metal bands.
Yeah.
But Nine Inch Nails never ever went nu metal. They never fell into, I suppose Trent never fell for it, Trent stayed true to his vision and, didn't tack himself onto anything. Because really, barring just coming out as an industrial artist to start off with, because at the end of the day, a genre is just used for people to find similar bands, really. Yeah. That is the sole purpose of a genre existing. That's why you no longer get thrash. You get crossover thrash, Teutonic thrash, blackened, crusted, deathened thrash, just like all this shit, so it's just a way for people to find stuff. But I'm sure the industrial enthusiasts would probably have a subgenre for Nine Inch Nails. It may not be considered legit industrial because there's other industrial music that's really harsh, and isn't like song related. And then Nine Inch Nails, Gristle is an example of that.
It's almost like Nine Inch Nails, for lack of a better comparison, is the Metallica of industrial.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, they took something that commercially isn't like it would be a hard sell to a mainstream audience to just walk in and say, here's an album of noise, right?
Yeah,
he took that and made it accessible, and that's really cool. Obviously, as he progressed, he got a little bit more avant-garde with his composition, but let's talk about the Fragile, man. This is one of those albums that like that you like, but I forgot to listen to it for a long time. And now going back through it, I'm like, Damn, dude, this is so good. So as I said, these four albums onward are basically on a I love you for all different reasons basis. Uh,
Yeah.
this is the longest of that lot, as it is, like you say, a double album the length of a triple or quadruple album, which
Yeah.
you're not wrong at all.
Yeah.
I think the very rare vinyl version is 3 discs. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense. You can fit way more on a CD than you can on a vinyl side. So yeah, so let's start off with the left disc
Yep.
because we didn't. Nine Inch Nails does shit different. You don't have
Well,
one and two. You got
also,
left and right.
when you bought the CD, it opened up like this, and there was
Yeah,
left disc and right disc. And so
yeah,
it actually had to do with the packaging as well. I mean, he puts a lot of thought into his stuff.
he does, and I appreciate that little extra level of attention to detail
Yeah.
from an artist who ties things in visually and tangibly.
Hmm.
So somewhat damaged, understated yet super heavy at the same time. Great way to kick off the album. I
Yeah.
don't know how you can have something that like simmers and boils while you know having something like going there. Like I love when that shit kicks in. I think,
Hmm.
oh,
Yeah.
woo,
Yeah.
god damn, dude. Um, the Day the World Went Away immediately follows that up, and it's this airy, spacey song. I love it. Um, but with like a really uplifting chorus as well.
Yeah.
The Frail is this little piano interlude. It's really nice, and then leads into the Wretched. I love the menacing vibe of this song. Gives
Yeah.
me like stealth mission, secret spy vibes, but then
Hmm.
like that guitar is just so good.
Hmm.
Um, we're in This Together is a fantastically written song. Super
Yeah,
fucking
it's like
catchy.
the I mean, it was the single off the album, but also it's like
Yeah.
it's got single material, but it's to me it's a really well written single,
Yeah.
and doesn't feel out of place on the album, so it works.
Not at all. Yeah, for sure. Hey, nailed it. The Fragile, I won't let you fall apart. But I
Mhm.
love the like weird time change he does in there as well. Where he just like apart, jumps
Yeah,
immediately back into it. There's always something off that fits
that
inexplicably well.
that to me, that's my relationship with Nine Inch Nails. The thing that really made me love the music was things that at first listen you go, how does that go there, or how does that work, and then it becomes a thing. It's pretty much informed a lot of like them, and a few other bands are really the reason why the things that really get me excited, that are like dissonant or discordant or whatever word you want to throw in there.
Yeah.
Because like even from album number one, he puts in guitar or key parts where I go, those notes feel really weird and strangely pleasing at the same
Yeah,
time. And he's so good at doing that shit.
man, it like, god damn, dude, just like you imagined is an instrumental. It's quite proggy, actually. Again, with those like weird time changes,
Yeah.
even deeper. A little bit of trip hop here. Trip hop, anyone? Um, it is 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Pilgrimage feels like a much more fleshed out version of Pinion from Broken, and I love the evil sounding melody. It sounds like an apocalyptic future where man and machine are at war. Whereas it's just got this like it's just got such a cool vibe to it.
Has Trent ever scored a sci-fi movie? Because it
No, but
seems like he needs to.
I think he might have, but I will say this, and this ties into the whole 2022 thing from earlier. Really ties well together. Um, so the Call of Duty games were a staple of my early teen years,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember the excitement around the release of Black Ops 2, which was the first of the games that was set in the future. the not so distant future,
Hmm.
back then, it came out in 2012 when I was 14 years old, right? The future it's set in is 2025.
Oh,
We're
we're
not
getting
that
close.
far from that. We're not that far from, drones becoming self-aware and having to go to war with them. It was basically um, tying the Terminator plot with the characters from a Cold War era game. The first Black Ops is Vietnam War, Cold
Hmm.
War shit. And then, years later, there's younger soldiers that team up with the older soldiers. And yeah, it's cool. But like I say, Trent Reznor actually scored the music for Black Ops 2,
Oh,
which is
okay.
where I was heading with that.
That's
And
cool. Because it just
yeah,
seems like he has a vibe that I just feel like he could just add that, because I love horror movies, like, fucking John Carpenter. John Carpenter's
yes.
the music he decides to put in his movies. I'm always just like, I don't want a horror movie that doesn't have that kind of music. I don't.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be a big orchestra. I want some dirty ass synths and weird pianos or whatever, in the soundtrack. So I don't know. He seems like he'd be a perfect fit.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, I'm I would think that he has probably done some sci-fi soundtrack work by
Mm-hmm.
now, for how long he's been doing it. Then you get No You Don't. Feels like a cross between groove metal and the Matrix. you know, it's 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 one of those things where I'm like, oh fuck, like this is a Pantera-ish riff, but it's got like, um, running past, doing crazy gymnastics moves around lasers, drum beats to it.
That this was
Lemaire,
the wasn't this the same year as the Matrix? 99? Isn't that when the
yep,
Matrix came out? Yeah.
yeah, which makes this album feel really like forward thinking, like
Hmm.
but yeah, like I said, Lemaire is this whimsically dark piano with this groove that has no right going that hard, and I
I love.
love that it.
Go.
Yeah,
You start. You go first, because you might be saying what I'm gonna say.
it teases the riff for Into the Void, which appears on the next disc, and I
Oh yeah,
love
yeah,
little things that tie the album together like that. That doo 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 dung dung, but doo doo doo, like it's so
yeah,
cheeky,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
love it. And then the Great Below is this somber side closer. And before I jump into the right disc, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was basically gonna say what you were saying about how I love, because I don't think that's the only song that does it, where there's a whatever you call it,
Leitmotif.
what yeah what something that repeats, or something that
Yeah,
what is it, foreshadows something that's coming, and I just, that's cool when he does that.
yeah, I love that too. So without further ado, the right disc,
Right disc, yeah.
which I have admittedly paid less attention to, as unfortunately as a circumstance of its placement being the second half of the album. There's been so many
Yeah.
times where I've said to myself, I'm going to listen to the Fragile, and I do the first disc, and I'm like, I got stuff to do, man.
And then you come back
but
to it again, and you're like, I can't just start on the second disc. I got to go
yeah,
back to the
yeah,
first.
exactly. It's that whole thing of like whenever I dig out Use Your Illusion 1, and if I listen to that one, I'm like, I kind of got to do 2 now. That's
Yeah.
why very
I
often these days I'll start with 2, so that like if I have the option there. I have this weird thing where like I almost humanize the songs, that I don't want to treat them unfairly.
no,
Like
I'm with you.
I want to give a fair amount of my time to everything they've done, um, that I feel is worth my time.
I
But
think that
yeah,
even though I've heard this album in its entirety a lot, I think I'm with you. I think I've listened to the first disc a lot more, or the left disc
mm.
a lot more.
Yeah, again, it's a victim of circumstance. But there are some songs on the right disc that I have actively just stuck on.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. So the way out is through is this atmospheric building kind of track, and then Into the Void. I love this song. I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, "Oh, stank riff face, man. Oh, I like that." it's just so fucking dirty, you know. When I hear it, I'm like, Trent's gone funk, and I love it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in his own way, but like, just the groove in that song. That's probably my favorite song from the Fragile,
Mhm.
next to the Wretched. But yeah. Whereas Everybody is a real head nodder. That groove is really tasty. That's the
Yeah.
thing with a lot of Nine Inch Nails. There's a lot of groove to it that, I don't actively think of, but when it comes on, I'm like, oof,
Yeah.
damn, dude. Um, the mark has been made is this cool, menacing, sinister thing. Please is full on alt rock, and then immediately after you get Starfuckers Inc. or Starfuckers Incorporated,
Yeah.
which is one of the wildest and heaviest Nine Inch Nails songs to not appear on Broken, because this would have been right at home.
Yeah.
Um, Complication is heavy electro rock. I'm looking forward to joining you finally. Is this understated groover? The big come down is this big janky jerky thing. Uh, yeah, I couldn't think of another way to describe it, but
Yeah.
underneath it all is another alt rocky groover, and then Ripe with
With
Decay.
decay.
Yeah. Is this the closer literally it does what it says on the tin. It literally sounds like Decay. And I mean, dude, this in terms of like re-listenability, I love this album because I hear
Yeah.
something new every time. There's so much to unpack. There's so much to do. I would love to do a slashed and mashed, but I also love it exactly the way it is.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, if you have anything left to add to the Fragile, um
No, I mean it's
yeah.
an experience, and it's one of the, I don't know. It's an album that like has a vibe to it just because of my life at the time. But hindsight has given me that little, it's lower. It actually went lower on the list than I thought it was going to go, because like I have a lot of memories attached to it. But
Yeah.
picking it apart, 23 years later, that's when I'm like, okay, all right. It's not perfect. So, um,
Fair.
but funny enough, the one that ended up being my number 4, um, I don't know if this is controversial or not, or strange, that this is in the top 4. But my number 4 is Hesitation Marks from 2013.
Cool.
And this one is when it came out, I just, the first couple tracks that were released from it, I'm just like, I could not stop listening to them, to where I was like looking forward to the album, because I'm just like, wow, these are something about these songs. It's like, it's almost like it's got a classic vibe to it, but also it feels pretty fresh, and still him kind of thinking forward on what he's doing, but almost like trying to make a classic Nine Inch Nails album with his current mindset. And
Yeah.
to me, it works. I mean, even the artwork looks kind of like the Downward Spiral, only with different colors.
Yeah.
And it's just like jam packed with memorable songs, with like hooks in so many of the songs. And that shit, that I'm a pushover for things like that. To me, like, this is the closest he's come in this millennium to making something that feels like classic Nine Inch Nails. Almost like like if you looked at Pretty Hate Machine through the lens of the Downward Spiral, you would get Hesitation Marks. But yeah, even the songs that aren't quite as strong, like, have a really good, enjoyable quality. And this is an album that has, for me, grown, where I really liked it in the beginning, but anytime I revisit it, it's just got so much shit that just still hits me like, this is really good, really well done. It's definitely too long. I'm gonna throw that out there. But I would say there's no full-on skippers. There's no skips on this album. No. But yeah, it's just a solid, cohesive, pleasing yet forward-thinking Nine Inch Nails album. And it gets this high just because it's become such a go-to late in the game. The fact that, like, in 2013 he put out an album that has now become one where it's a go-to Nine Inch Nails album for me. So
Yeah.
Hesitation Marks ends up being at number 4, which means that we have the same top 3,
Yeah.
but will they be in the same order? Find out next time on Crank Knob.
Oh man. Okay, so now for me, my Nine Inch Nails journey is a very personal Nine Inch Nails journey.
Yeah.
And my number 3 is gonna, it made it to the top 3, but it is considered, their masterpiece at the same time. My number 3 is The Downward Spiral.
Okay.
And I fucking love this. To me, it's 10 out of 10. Everything here onward, 10 out of 10. Like I would give The Fragile at least a strong 8 or 9, but this is like, I can't fault a single minute of anything going forward. So this album's really clever. It's a concept album about a dude that goes fucking mental. Yeah. Yeah. So without further ado, Mr. Self-Destruct, holy shit, what an opener. It just rips you apart. Everything is just so abrasive and full of rage and hate, and like, of songs that, this sounds mean, man. Like, especially the end where everything goes fucking, and then all of a sudden you've just got those looping, wildly dissonant, like tapped guitars and stuff.
Yep.
Right after that, I thought to myself, we went from like a dark version of synth pop to this in the space of 5 years and 3 releases.
Yeah.
Are you okay? That whole thing, quite clearly not. But,
no. Plus, I don't know how much this actually played into it, but it's famously written that he moved into the Manson family murder house.
Yes.
I think he moved into it when he was working on Broken and had the studio going there, but then he'd been living there when he did, or I guess he was also living there when he did The Downward Spiral, and it seems super appropriate for the album.
Yeah.
But I do have to say that several years, I don't know how many years ago it was, I read an interview with Trent where he talked about how he's kind of embarrassed about that fact that he moved into that house for whatever reason.
It's like he's looking back on it like, you fucking edgelord fucking kid.
Yeah. So it's an interesting aspect of the album, but personally speaking, as a person, if I was Trent's friend, I'd be like, oh, come on, dude. But yeah, and it's like, because he eventually felt like he was using the murders as kind of like a isn't this fascinating that I'm recording my album here, and kind of cheapening the deaths that happened there, and turning it into like, making it his own gain, artistically speaking. But I don't know, there's something about it that I'm just like, okay, I'm down for that, but I also see both sides of it where it's a little bit cheap but also very interesting.
Well, here's the thing. What started to really sell in the mid 90s? Edgy shit. Like it's, that the whole, I'd say the whole, look how angsty and edgy thing, really took off in 94, because like, a lot of people blame the grunge bands for that. I would say it was more like the kind of nu metal era that really has the teen angst thing to it.
There were politicians who were pointing out Nine Inch Nails songs as being a cause of problems with young people. So I mean, I think songs on this album, actually, if I remember right.
I mean, controversy sells, dude. Like, if you wanted to sell units, you didn't shy away from that parental advisory. I mean, fucking L7 put flames around theirs, and that's how you do it. You own that shit.
Mhm.
So immediately following Mr. Self-Destruct, you get Piggy,
Oh,
which, you know,
that is the transition between those, just going from that track to Piggy. This is so
yeah.
perfect. It feels,
Boom,
yeah,
boom,
because it's so,
boom.
at that point, that was
Yeah.
so, such an unexpected turn, but also
Yeah.
like, also you're just like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's so cool.
I mean, you know, following up that blast of rage and hurt that the opener was with this sneaky, understated gem is
Yeah.
fucking genius. Um, then you get Heresy. I fucking adore this song. Everything I
Yeah.
love about Nine Inch Nails is in this song. This is probably my favorite song on the record. You know, those arpeggiated synths in the verses, like with those heavy
That was
guitars.
almost a spot on.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I listening to the album now?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I love it so much that I even based last episode's Later Dude around it, and you did a fantastic
Well,
fucking version.
and I thought about trying to use the notes from the actual song, but I'm like, are we gonna get blocked if it's too close?
Yeah. Also, I kind of like how ours was its own thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think you the like grainy industrial overlay that you added as well
yeah,
was
yeah.
that was a nice touch.
If you don't know what we're talking about, just go watch the last like minute of part one of Nine Inch Nails. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you heard it in the
Yeah.
podcast too. The actual audio is in the podcast.
Yeah.
You just don't hear it. You just don't see the video filter I used.
But yeah,
It was an
that's great
inspired
fun.
moment.
Yeah, man. We're gonna have to step our game up after that.
We're gonna be
But
putting out
yeah,
a compilation of the best later dudes for everybody.
yeah. We should do that, dude. Like, like the next time we have an anniversary, like the 3rd year anniversary, we'll have to put out a video of like every later dude in fucking cranked and ranked history. That's
I
gonna be
mean,
fun.
that's an
It's
undertaking,
gonna
but I'll do it.
it's gonna start out with me being this like nervous kid, and
Well, in
then
the
just
beginning, it
like,
was just like
yeah,
later, dude.
later dude, yeah. And then I started impersonating the singer of whatever band it was, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah.
But like last time I couldn't think of anything, so I just like turned the chorus of Heresy into fucking later, dude.
It worked.
Oh man, March of the Pigs. This song,
Yeah, yeah. That's a
rhythmically
fucking
insane.
table flip, like of a fucking
Yeah,
song. Like it's literally like how old? 94. We're approaching 20 years or 30 years of this
yeah.
album, and that song still goosebumps.
Mm,
And I'm just like, how it can he? That's one of the things is that whatever you think about Nine Inch Nails, if it's not your cup of tea, like some of his songs have just such a
yeah,
timeless energy to them that just never dies to me. It
yeah.
never loses any of its potency. So
Mm.
love that song.
But it's just like how he thought to go from doesn't it make you
Oh
feel
yeah,
better?
yeah. And the music video fucking
Yeah,
rules too because it's
one
played
take.
live. It's in one take,
Yeah,
and I just like the fact that he goes around, and he just randomly hits the keyboard and throws the
yeah,
mic and stuff. I like that. Those are like the things like I love. I mean, for the most part, I'm all like, okay, give me a real music video, but occasionally a song, it fits so well to just have some sort of chaotic performance as the music video.
every band needs at least one rage room fucking video. They need an I'm broken, you know? Just that aesthetic of
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the band going nuts as themselves, you know? But
Also,
the March of the Pigs one is
that's a testament to how good a live band he had put together because even in that video, like they
yeah.
sound so good. So
Mm,
that's always been his thing.
absolutely wild show. It's funny actually. The other two dudes in my band called Sage were putting together some stuff. And a little bit of a plug there, but they actually recently went to see Nine Inch Nails, totally independent of us doing this, and they basically said, "Oh, we're going to see Nine Inch Nails," and I was like, "Dude, how fucking weird is this? We're doing Nine Inch Nails for the next 2 episodes of Cranked and Ranked,"
Yeah.
and yeah, So got some cool shit on the horizon. Uh,
Cool.
with that,
You want to plug your socials for that? You want to get people on board? I'm sure some people will go find you.
yeah, Sage on Facebook. I think we're on Instagram. We got like it's like three dogs. It's like three poodles. Like it's a Cerberus but with a poodle.
Is there for the URL? Is it like Sage Band or Sage something? Because it's it's easier to find if they have the actual.
Let's have a quick look. Let's just look here.
Because to be fair, there's quite a few one word bands out there.
Yes.
Did you guys Google the fuck out of the band name Sage, by the way?
Nah, we actually just decided it's got so many it's a word with a lot of different meanings, and it's also the name of the Radio X DJ in GTA San Andreas.
Oh.
We thought, have a fun little nod there.
Cool.
But we always liked that, Sage is a herb. It could also be a radio DJ or a wise old man that wanders the plains in search of knowledge. It's all sorts of different shit.
It's a cool name.
Yeah, so it's facebook.com/
http /
yeah. I'm pretty sure this is the hang on, wait, let me look it up on thingy so I don't give the wrong thing. Sage.
Please hold, everyone.
Yeah, please.
Get your browsers ready to go find this page and like it. And then when Sage blows up and becomes the next BTS, you will say you were there on the ground floor.
3 hours later.
I'm making a real ass of myself right now. I do apologize. Okay, so yeah, it is facebook.com/ Sage, that's SAGE, and then Kerno, which is KERNOW, which is the original Cornish way of saying Cornwall. It's KERNOW. A little bit of Kerno here.
There you go. So everybody go find it. Maybe I'll put it in the description also of the video.
I say from my bunker in an undisclosed location. Don't find where I live. This is an open invitation to not come to my house. Okay, so where are we at? Closer.
Like one of the
I hardly know her.
Closer is like one of the most iconic songs of the 90s. It's
let alone 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody knows that I wanna fuck you like an animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's that one. The one MTV.
Oh yeah, that one.
Play. Yeah.
They played it. They just edited the fuck out of it. But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because there was a lot of parts of the video as well that were considered like really graphic and controversial. So
yeah, so it was played a lot on MTV, but they cut it. Obviously, they edited the words, but then they blurred out whenever there was like something they didn't want to show. So
right,
so you saw most of the video. Things would just be blurred.
Yeah, which is kind of like, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, for a broadcaster, but. It does kind of bastardize the vision a little bit.
I mean, the censoring in music video world, especially later in the 90s, got so fucking ridiculous where it wasn't even words that were bad. It was words that they thought could somehow be related to something bad. And if anyone's out there wants to laugh, try go watching the music video for the song "Stay Fly" by 3 6 Mafia. Because literally the whole song is like, I don't, and then like that's literally there's a whole verses where I go, what is the point of even? And most of the words are not bad words, know, like they literally at one point cut out the word purple because it's related to drink or the purple drink. Which was, I guess you're not supposed to be drinking cough syrup or whatever it was made out of. But still, it's like there's so many words where I'm just like, why did they even cut this out? But they would do that. Like you couldn't say the word gun or shoot or like any of these things, and your song would just get edited to fuck. And it's all just MTV trying to avoid lawsuits, obviously, but still.
It just ends up sounding like that drive-through scene from Wayne's World 2. Like, oh, are you eager again? You know?
Yep, that's exactly it.
Yeah, I love
these days these days having edited versions of shit is so stupid because like everyone can so easily access anything. It's like I got that. There was only a few years of my daughter like getting into her own music where I was a little like, "What are you listening to?" And then I finally went, "She's gonna find this stuff. Why she'll listen to WAP if she wants to. I can't do anything about it because it's out there."
So, meanwhile, you've got Baby Shark. And next thing in the queue is like "Hand on My Gat," like something like that.
I can say, luckily, my daughter was not the right age for Baby Shark because once that was a thing, she was already getting older, and she was like, "No, I'm not into that kid stuff." So
yeah, the only thing more annoying than Baby Shark is Agadoo. I can't forgive Agadoo.
I don't even know that, so don't tell me about it.
Yeah, like. As far as the 80s go, that's where I draw the fucking line. I'm like, get the hell out of my head, you catchy motherfucker.
That's an 80s song?
Yeah. It's like an 80s. It's much more of a British thing, but my God,
okay.
It's so fucking catchy that it every time it gets stuck in my head, I'm like, I honestly want a 12 gauge facial when I remember that song because, like, I'm thinking to myself, Jesus fucking Christ, get this.
Well, now I'm interested. I'm gonna have to go look it up and listen to it just so I can see.
Do it at your own discretion because once it's in there, it takes a hell of a while to get it out. But yeah, with that, back to Downward Spiral. Let's go further down the spiral. Not that though. That's a remix album. So we got
yeah, that is.
Yeah, it's that cheeky guitar solo in the middle shouldn't work that well. It actually sounds like a southern rock solo played through the fingers of Kurt Cobain. Mm-hmm. If you kind of catch my drift. Yeah. I love it. The Becoming, I love the piano on this. It's like a John Petrucci riff, but on a piano, and then later a synth. It's very. This song always makes me think. This could have easily been a prog metal song, but Trent being Trent, he makes heavy music in a different way.
Yeah.
I do not want this. Some very heavy tremolo picked guitar riffs that come out of nowhere in this one. Big Man with a Gun, unforgiving blast of pure ferocity. And then you get A Warm Place, which is an unusually tender moment of peace on this album. I could listen to this on repeat for hours. I love those dreamy piano notes, but I mean, I've never dug too deep into the stages of this concept album. All I know is it's the descent of a man's sanity, but yeah, I suppose this would be like, a hit of heroin or something,
Yeah, I mean, I you know me, I don't dig into concepts. I just like the music and, but yeah, there's a concept here.
I really love this instrumental because I'm so struck by how pretty it is in, surrounded by so much brutality in terms of like, if you're not in the right mood, it's going to grate on you. But if you are, I'm going to listen to the Downward Spiral. You're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like Eraser is almost 4 minutes of building tension, which explodes into one of the album's most metal chugging moments. Like the chugs on this are very, very heavy metal. Reptile is, there's frightening apocalyptic sounds all over this one. The Downward Spiral calls back to the likes of the end of Piggy with a melody that appears a few times in the album as a bit of a leitmotif, ties it all together.
Yep.
And then finally, they covered a Johnny Cash song.
Oh, stop it!
I knew that would. Yeah,
I know. The Johnny Cash version is great, but it does not fucking hold a candle to this song. This song, it's like. Hurt is like one of those songs that's just absolutely perfect. The way, not just the way that it's written and the way that it's played, but the way that Trent sings each part of the song, it is fucking perfect.
Yeah, in all seriousness, this is the perfect way to close this album, especially it's such a heartbroken, downtrodden song, and then like especially the unexpected power chord at the end. Spoiler alert, but if you're listening to a fucking podcast about Nine Inch Nails, you know about that end of Hurt. So yeah, I mean, it's not hard to see why this is considered their finest moment.
Yeah.
However, personally, to me, the two above it, I have a slightly stronger personal connection to.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Yeah. I have a feeling I know how your ranking is going to go, and ours it's going to be an interesting sort of weaving of albums, because my number 3 is Pretty Hate Machine from 1989.
Cool.
First off, like, you can't say the name Pretty Hate Machine without me pointing you and going classic, because it is an absolute fucking classic album.
Mm-hmm.
Head Like a Hole is like one of the best album openers ever.
That's one of the best songs ever fucking made. Dude.
It's so cool. It still sounds cool. That's the thing about this album, is that it's interesting to me how in certain ways it sounds a little bit dated, and then in other ways it actually sounds more groundbreaking today than it did back then. Because you listen to it, and if you're listening to it and what was going on in the time, like, there was already other industrial music, but something about this album, it was just like the liberation of the dirty synthesizer or whatever. It's like heavy music being brought to you in a way that you weren't ready for. And not all of it's heavy, obviously. There's Down in It is not a fucking heavy song. It's more like an 80s pop tune with some weird discordant notes in it.
But it still has the distorted guitar in there.
I guess you're right. You're right. It does. So for me, I had never heard anything like this at the time. Now, to be fair, like for a long time, when somebody would come to me and say, what is your go-to industrial album, I would always say Land of Rape and Honey by Ministry. Because that one for me is the most because it's pretty grating all the way through, whereas Pretty Hate Machine has some 80s synth pop that seeps into there. But that being said, though, Pretty Hate Machine did what Ministry really never did, which is make music that you could sit brooding in your room when you're brokenhearted and depressed, or it can be at a dance club. There could be songs played, because the number of times I was out at clubs when I was in my 20s and they played Ring Finger, I'm just, it's just so that there's something about this album where it's like taking these elements that on paper maybe you'd go, that's gonna be jarring, that's not really gonna go together, but it does in a way that seems like it was meant to happen. It goes at number 3 because while I do love every minute of this album, just like with The Fragile, there are some songs that haven't aged as well for me, and they kind of, you feel the album take a little bit of a dip for a second, and I go, oh, all right, this doesn't have the 10 out of 10 like the rest of the album does. And I think this album was tainted by me over the years meeting so many sad dudes that this was their album. And what was every sad dude's favorite song on this album? Something I Can Never Have. Like that was their theme song. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And that now that leaves a different taste in my mouth, because I'm like, oh, that was really cute and sad. And now I'm all like, are these incels? Are they going to go and shoot up a place?
Yeah.
So it's a different vibe now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I do love that song. And there have been times, not in an incel way so much as like just, if, I was in a bad spot personally and I legitimately, no matter what I did, I just couldn't get to the, a level or a place that I wanted to be at the time. And there
Yeah.
was just, life happens, shit gets in the way. Thankfully, I'm in a place now where at least I kind of have my kick-ass fucking studio around me, and I can finally start doing band shit again because, at least the world for the most part isn't shackled by the plague. So,
It says the two guys that just got it like a couple weeks ago.
yeah, but like if I'm gonna catch it from anywhere, I should get it from seeing Kiss, not, being coughed on by some Karen who said, why are these fucking carrots not going down to 2p? It's like, because that's not 75% off, then that's as high as I can go. And then I get COVID from some belligerent dick. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So with that, yeah, sorry, I kind of
Oh no,
hijacked the,
it's all right.
yeah.
Yeah,
PhD.
but taking context that isn't there out of the album, like because I know it's sometimes you do that, and we both have talked about how sometimes music is tainted by things that it shouldn't be tainted by.
Yeah.
But you take that all out, and Pretty Hate Machine, like I said, it's an absolute classic, and it's I feel like it's an album that's kind of proved its importance time and time again over the years. Because so, like you said, so much music, there are still things today that artists are doing that I go, well, that clearly, if you want to draw a line to where that started, it was Pretty Hate Machine. Even metal bands that are introducing a little bit of industrial stuff. I'm all like, I feel like it all started with Pretty Hate Machine. It may not have been the first, but it was like the Nevermind of industrial, where it really kicked doors open. Also an interesting thing about this album, it was the first independently released album to ever go triple platinum, which is interesting.
Wow.
But it was on a label called TVT Records. Do you know anything about TVT Records?
I'm gonna be honest here. No.
Okay, so TVT stands for TV Tunes, because what they were known for prior to this was putting out compilations of television theme songs. And I actually knew that because my older brother had a compilation I think was called Television's Greatest Hits, and it had all these theme songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s. Most of them the original, some re-recorded versions. But they were known as TV tunes because that's what they put out, novelty albums with TV show theme songs. And so I remember when this album came out, I'm all like, TVT, like the TV show one.
Yeah.
And so, and obviously they signed other artists and became more of a legit label. Although I don't think it exists anymore. But and apparently Trent Reznor didn't like the label because he tried to get out of it real fucking quick. Which is a little bit documented. I will bring up this miniseries anytime I can because it's one of the best ever made. It's called The Defiant Ones, and it's essentially about Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. And their lives and their careers and how they eventually intertwine with each other. But Jimmy Iovine and Trent Reznor, like they talk about the whole thing of Jimmy Iovine trying to get Trent out of his contract with TVT and being so persistent to get Trent on board on Interscope, I guess it was at the time. But that entire miniseries is absolutely great. But the Nine Inch Nails section is very cool. Anyway, Pretty Hate Machine, classic. I mean, if you have a top 100 best albums ever made and this album isn't on it, that's weird because it's but it's wrong. But to me, it's not the best Nine Inch Nails album. It's only number 3. So I mean, that's those are strong words. It's a high praise, as they say. So I have a weird feeling that we're going to have the same number 2. Let's find out.
Let's go for it. 3, 2, 1.
Broken.
Hey,
it, was
there we go.
it was a little bit off, but
Yeah.
Broken is also my number 2.
Well, cool. Let's just camp out in Broken Zone. Let's do this.
Damn. Yep.
Cool. So without a doubt, their most metal release. You know, if you
That's how I got into them. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're gonna call anything by Nine Inch Nails industrial metal, then this is it.
Yeah.
This is a hard left into guitar driven stuff. Pinion right out of the gate is just this ascending distorted power chord intro.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it is what it is. It's just a little intro, but what it does is just it builds up and builds up and builds up, and then you get fucking Wish, dude. Like, what an absolute
which is
ripper.
Everything that I said about March of the Pigs, you can say the exact same thing about Wish. It is one of the coolest songs ever.
Ferocious
song.
And that's the thing about it. It's like I find it hard to explain in a way that's, I feel like how I'm going to describe it is going to do it a disservice because it's much more than that.
Yeah.
But it's like an EDM producer made a metal album, but for some reason it's just really fucking good, you know? And
you want to know, I don't know if you've ever heard this in Wish, but if you take the songwriting of Wish, the way the verses play out, it's almost, you could literally make a blues version of the song. Because it's got that thing where he sings a line and then the band comes in with and then I guess I wouldn't, blues or whatever, but it does have that sort of the blues, like sort of, I don't know what you would call that style of song, where it's somebody would sing a line and be like like it has that quality where it's like it takes like a classic element of songs that have been written for 50 years and just makes it this big ass chaotic song.
I tell you what, I feel the same way about Sweating Bullets. For some reason, I always got like a blues vibe from that song.
Yeah, for sure.
It's in the songwriting rather than the actual musicianship.
I mean, it essentially is a birding, hello, meet the real me.
It's my fault.
yeah.
But yeah, like, man, Last heaviest song they've ever done, probably. Like, god damn, if anything, it's just a crushing, like, especially when they go into the like that. But then you get, Help Me, I'm in Hell, which is like a first glimpse at Nine Inch Nails, more soundtracky stuff. Wild to think this is 1992, because this album, to me, it's one of those that I look at everything else coming out in 1992. This is a year where hair metal is still hanging on. And stuff like this that sounds like it could have come out 10 years later.
Yeah. That we've talked about this before. That's why the early 90s were so great, because you had stuff that still retained some of the things that we love about the 80s, but other stuff that was just ahead of its time, and other stuff that was very of its time, all happening all at the same time, all great music. I mean, it's a great time.
I just wish 1992 just could have lasted forever, man.
Which was 30 years ago now.
Damn, dude. Someone should wind back the fucking clock and let's. I don't care if I'm a fucking sperm. Let's go back to 92.
It'd be weird for us to hang out, because I'd be 14 and you'd be a sperm. I don't know how our relationship would work, but
you just carry me around in a little vial around your neck. He's like, "Hey guys, meet Eddie." He lives around my neck.
Trust me, one day this is going to be a really cool dude.
Oh man. It's like Borat carrying around the jar of gypsy tears to protect me from AIDS. So yeah, you get Help Me, I'm in Hell is like, it's like I've done this one. Happiness in Slavery is what I meant to say. It's brutal in the sense that everything is so loud and distorted. Like, I love it, but it was a grower for me because I'd never heard anything quite like it at the time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so initially, I was used to things being brutal because they were heavy, not because they were so fucking gnarly and in your face, you know. So
Yeah.
that one, it wasn't a skipper, but it took me a while to
Oh,
warm up to it.
I love that song, but I cannot disconnect it from the music video. It will always be connected to the music video because I saw it. They wouldn't play it on MTV. They played it on the local access channel that played music video. They had a music video show. I've talked about it sometimes on my channel. But they played have you seen the Happiness and Slavery video?
I seem to have forgotten it, but I
So it's
recall
literally
seeing.
the band is not in it. It is a guy who walks into a room, takes his clothes off, lays down in a contraption, and starts to be tortured by the contraption in all these different ways, including at the very end what you assume to be his dick getting ripped off. It's like it is like it's so. I mean, probably by today's standards, it's probably pretty lightweight. But in 92, 93, whenever I saw it, I was just like, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen. And so whenever I hear the song, I just think of that music video. And
man.
and at the end of the music video, like the guy has now been the contraption encloses on him and he gets ground down like beef out of this thing. And then all of a sudden the thing goes back to normal, and another guy who is Trent Reznor comes into the room and starts taking off his clothes. That's the end of the video. So
I need to remind myself of that disturbing stuff.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. I love that song, but there's my brain will always flash towards the dude getting tortured by the machine.
You just have a fucking Nam flashback every time that song comes on, man.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I watched so much stuff when I was young that I should never have watched at that age, and I'm sure it turned me into the weirdo that I am today. But still.
I mean, if you weren't traumatized as a teenager seeing that shit, we may not be here now.
Yeah, it's very true.
But yeah, we got Gave Up, the double kick feel, and the killer chorus makes me want to stage dive into a sea of flailing arms, dude. This and Last are tied for favorite songs here. Like, goddamn, I love the chorus. You know that it took you to make me realize. You know, that almost feels to me like this song feels like Metallica could do a killer cover of it, you know?
Oh, probably, yeah.
Because
or some metal band, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just always struck me as like one of their more punky covers.
Mm-hmm.
This would feel right at home, you know?
Yeah.
That real punky but metallic thing at the same time. Now on the CD version of the album, or at least the one I've got, there's like 93-second tracks of empty space between the 6 tracks, which technically turns this into an EP with nearly 100 tracks on it.
Originally, and one of my good friends at the time had this version of the album where it was a CD and then a mini CD.
Yeah,
you know, they used to make like the 3-inch CDs or whatever. And that's how you would have listened to the last 2 tracks. It was just the regular EP, kind of like this, where this vinyl is the proper EP and this is the last 2 tracks. But I don't think they made very many of those. Hopefully my friend held on to it because I'm sure it's probably worth money, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Nine Inch Nails are, you know, they do a little trolling every now and again.
Yeah.
But but you got 2 covers here. Physical.
Well,
so.
One of them is a legit cover. The other one's not really.
Well, yeah. It's technically a cover, but yeah, it's also an original in a weird way.
Because the pig face. Let's do Physical first. The Adam and the Ants. Cover.
So this is a chugging, heavy ass cover of the Adam and Ants song. I really like it. It's just another reason why I love this EP is because it's just it is like. It's what I want them to do again, but with a different genre. You know, they decided, you know what, let's go all in on this vibe with this album.
Yeah.
As a stopgap between, you know, basically Depeche Mode, but depressed. Then let's
depressed mode.
Depressed mode. Yeah.
There's the tagline for Pretty Hate Machine: depressed mode.
Depressed mode. Yeah. And then, immediately follow that up with, do you know what? Let's be a metal band for an EP, and then we're gonna go like really wild and experimental on the next one. But here's the thing, right? It's like we said last time. The Nine Inch Nails color palette built so much over time
Yeah,
that nowadays, in more recent times, Trent just like cherry picks parts from all ends of the spectrum,
yeah,
and because he does so many things all in one go, I'm not surprised by anything anymore
yeah,
because it's all, I know he can do everything. So
yeah.
when he does everything, it's just more of him doing everything. So, yeah, but um, Suck is technically a cover of the song by Pigface, which is a group which once included Reznor in the lineup.
Well, even that particular song, Trent Reznor is the vocalist on the original song Suck, only the music is completely
Yeah.
different because according to him, the music wasn't finished. The song, he had recorded vocals over a track that wasn't intended to be the final version. So yeah, from what I read, according to Trent, his real intention for the song is much closer to the one that's here. So you could say it's a Trent Reznor original, but I don't know what all went into the original writing of the song.
Yeah.
Because I think he does say Pigface in like the writing credits. So,
Right.
it is what it is. But I like that song's great.
Yeah. It's a really cool EP, and it's like it's one of those rare times that they kind of just honed in on one thing and just fucking killed it.
Yeah. For me, for sheer lasting enjoyment, this could easily be number one for me because it never loses any of its enjoyment and its energy. It's always a great listen. I'd put it in like, a list of the best EPs ever made.
Yeah.
Because like so many, like the idea of the EP, for the most part, a lot of times it seems like it's just a small collection of songs. Sometimes, like you say, like a stopgap between two things. But there's those rare occasions where a band puts 100% into an EP. Jar of Flies is another one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And for some reason, like being a guy that likes shorter albums, if a band would come out with one fucking killer 5 to 6 track EP a year or every other year, I'd be fine. Like you don't need to give me an album as long as you've literally taken your A game and thrown it on an EP. I'm happy with that.
Noted.
and the fact that the fact that like it is an EP, but to me it holds so much weight in the Nine Inch Nails category, because if you compare this to Pretty Hate Machine has elements that sound very dated. This one, they went from that album to this, which if you play it for some kid today, they're not going to know this is 1992. They are not going to know that.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he made that big of a step where he's just like, all right, now it's almost like he kind of shedded his influences from being such, worn on his sleeve, which I think he did a lot on Pretty Hate Machine. And then all of a sudden, this is just like a statement of, all right, here's Nine Inch Nails. And that's why it's so amazing. It's perfect. It is an EP that if in somebody's ranking it was number one, I'd be like, I absolutely understand why it would be number one. But it's our number two. And we have very different number ones, although, just a few years apart, really. But,
we got the same top three. So
I'll let you jump into your number one Nine Inch Nails album.
Cool. So my number one Nine Inch Nails album is 1989's Pretty Hate Machine. And the reason I love this album so goddamn much is because the thing that this album taught my 15-year-old metalhead brain was that things didn't have to be played on a guitar to be heavy.
Yeah.
And the bass line to Head Like a Hole alone showed me that. So yeah, Head Like a Hole, probably my favorite Nine Inch Nails song. Like, it's an anthemic banger. Every single section of this song is just pure hook. Not one part of it is wasted time. Not one
Yeah.
part is unmemorable. The whole thing is just a perfectly crafted thing that just kicks ass right the way through. But it's a very busy song, and then immediately you follow that up with Terrible Lie, which in stark contrast to the density of information rhythmically and sonically happening in the opener, this one relies on just a two-chord riff in the
Yeah.
verses, and it's brilliant. And when, the Terrible Lie, all of the other cerebral shit starts happening, but there's just
Yeah.
that bah, bah,
Yeah. Once again, you can make
bah,
that
bah.
you can
Yeah.
make that blues comparison there to
Yeah.
that. That's real. Now that I'm really like looking at a lot of his songs, I'm like, yeah, you could basically do a little blues version of this.
This is where Trent's like, you couldn't leave well enough alone. I've been a secret blues
Sorry.
musician all these years, and we finally cracked the code.
But he throws in that song I think I even mentioned this because we did 1989 and we talked about Pretty Hate Machine.
Yeah.
But like if I was gonna list like the characteristics of things that I love about Nine Inch Nails, it's the very end of Terrible Lie where all of a sudden there's that melody that doesn't seem to work but does that like that whole part. Every time I hear it, I'm like, this is so perfect. But if you really like listen to it, you're like, it's a weird grouping of notes, but it just sounds so cool. And he does that. Like that's, he's really important to me in being that, opening my brain up to like how weird ideas can become beautiful ideas, And so I don't know. It's great.
Oh man, down in it, you get this industrial spoken word, and the delivery resembles hip hop, but there's so much more of a poetry thing going on with his lyrics. And the bridge of this song is the highlight to me. I used to be so big and strong. I used to know my right from wrong. Like when that happens on, it's just like, yeah, go off, yeah. And dude, Sanctified. This so could have been one of the Doom games from the 90s, like one of the more ambient tracks. I love it. It's really cool. And then you get, as you say, the
Sad Dude song.
Yeah, the Sad Dude song that, sadly has, could be easily hijacked by an incel. But yeah. If you're listening to this and you're an incel, cringe.
Fuck off.
Stop that. Stop that right now.
You are not the most important thing in the world. Get over yourself.
No. Maybe work on yourself, and stop being such a belligerent dick.
Well, I mean, I think it boils down to blame.
Hammer that home.
Yeah, I think it boils down to don't blame other people for yourself. Like it's like that. I mean, I can understand like being. Let's not get into this. It seems like a real slippery slope because I realize that a lot of those people are people with problems and sad individuals, and I can't. As much as I'm not a great looking dude in a lot of people's eyes. I haven't had to go through that kind of life. So I understand, feeling like the world is against you. But at the same time, I think it's very important to take a step back and be like, look, blaming other people isn't the answer to everything.
I think the best way I can sum it up in just like a saying is that, speaking as someone who has at one point been very angry with the world and, felt like the world was against them. I had a real hard time in high school, I never shot anybody, thankfully, but, I can turn around and say, hurt people. And,
Hey.
that's there is that thing of you got to step back and examine what made them do that. They've probably got shit lives too, and at the end of the day, I think my mom always says every pot has a lid, and and basically what that is that there's someone out there for you. You just gotta work on yourself and not be a belligerent dick.
I'm actually kind of against that kind of thinking, because there are people that never find someone.
That is true.
And some people are perfectly cool with it, and some people are not. And I feel for those people, but yeah, I think my problem is any extremist viewpoint about anything.
That's where I'm going with it,
because it gets to the conversations that we have a lot about gray areas, and there's never just one answer. Not everything is really fucking simple. But it sucks. I don't have the answers. I don't know how to help people. I mean, I guess I'd be a therapist if I did, but I don't.
I just want this on paper. Extremism is cringe. Eddie Sparxx 2022.
Yeah, I'm down with you.
Yeah.
But we love extreme in our music.
Yes. Yeah. That's when it's not cringe.
Maybe not lyrically speaking, but musically speaking, extreme is usually pretty cool.
Cue the anal cunt song. Hitler was a sensitive man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do something I can never have. A big old spacious piano.
Great. It's a great song.
Ballad. Yeah, it's really cool, moody and atmospheric. It's just, through the lens of 2022 and, fucking incels. With that, something I can never have. Cool song, which has, unfortunately been tainted.
It doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. Yeah. Unfortunately, like you say, some things can get kind of fucky through association,
Yeah.
But
if we were perfect people, that would never happen. But
no,
we are not. We are flawed, all of us, every one of us.
Yeah. Not one of us is perfect.
Except for Trent Reznor. He's come on, man.
Yeah.
he's pretty perfect.
Yeah, true. So kind of I love this song. It's badass.
Yeah.
I love the groove to it. I love the really gnarly thing going on. Sin, I love this song even more. I would say it's in my top 5 Nine Inch Nails songs.
Yeah.
I'd say, I can categorically say Last, Gave Up, Head Like a Hole, and Sin and Heresy. Boom. Top 5 right out of the gate. Those are my top 5. I just fucking love Sin. It's so good. That's what I get. Now, these next 2 tracks are probably the strangest and most unique on the album. They're weird but cool. That's what I get. And The Only Time, same goes for this one. But I remember the first time, I heard Ring Finger. It wasn't the first time I heard Ring Finger, but it was the first time that I realized it has a perfect walking pace. I remember getting off of the bus on my way home from school when I was about 15 and walking perfectly in step with the entire song on my way to my house. And I just thought to myself, maybe
that's why I would hear it in dance clubs, because it's got a good beat for that.
It's so fun. But it's just cool to have this rock oriented dark synth pop album that's super accessible and hooky, but also really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I look at my ranking and I'm kind of disheartened that 7 to 1 is a pretty clear backwards trajectory.
Yeah.
But as I said, my top 4 on any given day, any of those top 4 could be that number 1. So I'm just going with a gut instinct and probably the amount of times I've listened to an album. So yeah, with that, over to you.
Okay.
I've wrapped up mine.
Yeah, I feel like we both have number ones that are pretty normal to be on the number 1 of lists. Mine being The Downward Spiral from 1994.
Fucking normies.
Yeah. I mean, like we've said many times, classic albums are classic for a reason.
Yeah.
And it just like everything, like popular bands are popular for a reason. Whether or not you like it that's a different story. But Downward Spiral, like you said, like it really expands on the Nine Inch Nails sound, where they get more experimental, but they have like fucking killer like rockers like March of the Pigs, and then
Yeah.
you get a little bit of classic 90s with Closer, which, you know, that's when you think about that, the fact that song became a hit, that's kind of odd. The whole thing about it is odd, but it's just a fucking great song.
Yeah.
But overall, like this is such, I think when it comes to Nine Inch Nails, this is the most dynamically exciting album that he ever did. And it has something of everything Nine Inch Nails related. I feel like,
yeah,
but when we talk about the palette, I feel like this was the beginning of like it being kind of fully formed. And then, you know, parts of it maybe expanded a little bit, but I think Downward Spiral is like the ultimate statement of everything that was possible with Nine Inch Nails. And on top of that, this goes number one for me because I think it's the obvious entry point for anybody who's trying to get into Nine Inch Nails, because of all of that. Because like you get things that are the heavier industrial, you get stuff that's a little more experimental, and just think overall it's probably the most perfectly constructed Nine Inch Nails album, just the way everything flows, because you have accessible songs and challenging songs all kind of seamlessly threaded into an album that is almost kind of unexpectedly enjoyable. Like going into it, you know, you wouldn't think like, man, this just is so fun to listen to, even though it is an album apparently about a guy losing his mind. And unlike some other things that we talked about, like for me, this album has only grown better over the years. There's no part of this album where I go, well, that didn't age very well. I feel like every aspect of this album is pretty much perfect. I feel like it's kind of an unmatched work of art in its genre, right? You know, it's like the fucking Mona Lisa of industrial alternative rock albums, because it's just like, I mean, you know, everyone's, you know, like a lot of people are influenced by Pretty Hate Machine, sure, but I feel like when it comes to the goal, like, you know, as a person that, you know, that still loves the idea of an album, I feel like Downward Spiral is one of the best examples of what is possible in the idea of the album. And it's a goal of like, could you make something that's that good, that has that kind of dynamics, that kind of variety, but also still feel like a cohesive statement of an artist at a particular time. I just think it's unfuckwithable, and it ends with Hurt, which is fucking one of the best album closers. But yeah, I mean, we've all the things that you said about the album, like I'm with you. I just, this is the one for me that I feel like coming at it from different angles, coming at it from me enjoying it, and coming at it from an angle of picking it apart for what it is and what makes it up. I feel like this one is just it's a no-brainer for a number one.
I'm not surprised at all that it's your number one, because like from like a songwriting perspective and from like an experimentation perspective, it's clear to see that this is the one that's the most cohesive. Despite being batshit insane at nearly every fucking turn.
Well, I think, because I'm not I don't just like experimentation for experimentation's sake. I like when experimentation is oddly accessible. Like,
exactly.
If you can pull that off, if you can pull off something that isn't expected, that isn't just cookie cutter or isn't playing to what some audience wants, and at the same time making an album that so many people can get into. I mean, that's what it's all about right there, musically speaking. Because, you know, as much as people want to say, you know, we make music for ourselves, you're also making it for other people, because otherwise why put it out? So if you can please both, if you can do that, if you can make a statement of like, I don't know. I haven't really heard Trent talk about this album in years, but I'm assuming he's probably pretty proud of it. But
Yeah.
if you can put something out there where you go, I'm so proud of this, and this is everything I wanted to do, and it's my vision, and the whole world goes fucking A, then
Yeah.
that's it. That's the dream. That is the dream as an
yeah.
artist. So yeah, that's my number one. Wrapping up the Nine Inch Nails discography. So who we have to do this one? 3, 2, 1. Yeah! We did it!
Fuck yeah.
How does Ja Rule
shit.
do it?
I don't know. Mixed with a little bit of hip hop soul. We do.
We do. Whew.
Damn, dude, that really took him out. Holy shit! Am I
It
gonna have
did.
to land this plane?
I've still got leftover COVID in my throat.
It's funny, actually, you should mention that because, like, it seems whenever we have throat trouble, it happens at the same time because we both got COVID at the same time. And then today, my friend at work made me wheeze laugh so fucking hard that my throat has literally gone back to just this shit. Yeah. Although I will say, getting COVID made my voice a little sexier.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
Yeah.
For both of us, I'm actually finally at the point now. Is it fucking been 3 weeks since I first tested positive? And I this weekend is the first time that I finally feel pretty normal. Like I had the long COVID or whatever. It was like
Really
little bits of it just stuck around.
Yeah.
And so but no, I'm a lot better. Just get a little bit of the itchy throat left over.
Yeah, within a day of testing negative, I was pretty much back to normal. I think I had a sore nose from all of the tissues and that, but aside from that, I was pretty much normal.
Yeah, I mean, I got allergy issues anyway. Welcome to the end of the show where we just talk about being sick and stuff like that. It's, it's only for the peanut butter platypuses. You get to hear us talk about our medical issues.
Yes.
That being said, this has been a long one, so we'll get out of your hair. Thank you very much for being here. We are going to be back next week with another band. Definitely a different vibe, different time period.
Yeah.
Should be fun. But we've got a lot more in store for you guys. So hopefully you're digging this stuff. Yeah. So thanks everyone for sticking around and listening to part 2 of this Cranked and Ranked. Do you have anything to add before we get the fuck out of here?
Nah. This has been real fun. Digging back into Nine Inch Nails has been a really rewarding thing because I've gone back. I've really found myself camping out in the Fragile Zone. I've just been going back over and over that album in particular, and I know it came in at number 4, but when you have one of those moments where all of a sudden an album that maybe didn't so much click before just suddenly does. I'm really having that right now with the Fragile.
Oh yeah. I have that often with random albums and that's for me that's like one of the best feelings in the world because it's almost like something becoming it's like you're getting paid for something that like you in the past you like did it for free and now all of a sudden you're getting reimbursed. You're like, hey, this is worth it.
Nice.
Anyway, so yeah, thank you all very much for joining us for Cranked and Rank. We'll be back next week, and as usual, tossing it over to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Doesn't it make you feel later, dude?
Cool.